New York wasn't quiet so much as it was listening. Rain threaded the air like silver wire, pooling along the curb, flattening paper cups and petals into the gutter. Sirens bounced off the glass facades on West 43rd Street and painted the alley mouth in hot red and blue. Phones rose like a forest of small moons, their front-facing cameras capturing a moment the city would argue about for months. A man in a torn leather jacket clutched a trembling girl against his chest, the muzzle of a pistol kissing her temple. "Don't move or she dies!" he shrieked, voice cracking. The crowd recoiled. Somewhere, a string of oranges rolled from a paper sack, bumping softly against a fire hydrant. And then a tall man stepped forward, no shouting, no bravado, only an iron calm that made people go silent without knowing why. His name was Jack Miller. He was a single dad, and that little girl was his whole world. Jack Miller had once marched under desert suns that peeled the horizon into mirage. 22 when he shipped out, 36 now, he carried a kind of stillness that never quite left men who'd listened to the breath between heartbeats and chosen their moments carefully. After the Marines, he learned to live small without feeling smaller. A garage in Brooklyn, a battered coffee maker that sputtered like an old friend at dawn, a wall calendar dotted with school pickups and piano recitals, pancakes on Saturdays, scraped knees and firefly jars in July. He kept the toolbox under the sink alphabetized because control, however, mundane had become his church. Emily Miller was 7, all elbows and wild questions. She named pigeons. She believed a cardboard box could be a spaceship and that her dad could fix anything that broke, including the world. In the picture on Jack's nightstand, she was 3 and wore a paper crown drawn with purple crayons by fingers still chubby with babyhood. Her mother, Lily, was laughing in the background, hair caught in mid-wind. Lily's absence had the shape of a room Jack wouldn't go into. He learned to fold loneliness into chores, into packing lunches and replacing batteries in smoke detectors before they started chirping. Olivia Sterling, at 34, was a CEO that headlines misread as myth, platinum hair and red silhouettes on magazine covers, a woman whose boardrooms ran on her clock. She'd inherited Sterling Technologies at 29 and multiplied it as if growth could outrun emptiness. She was fluent in earnings calls, less fluent in quiet Sundays. In glass offices at the top of Midtown, power smelled like ozone and new servers. She could read a market like a novel, but not always a person like a page. She knew the cost of control. Dinner with a view eaten alone. A couch the size of a skiff that still felt too big. There was, too, Bradley Cross. 40, angular, pale as an overcast noon, hair pushed back with expensive intent, the gleam of a silver suit. He cultivated the public's tolerance for his ruthlessness by calling it vision. He wanted Sterling Technologies as a child, wants the toy another child already loves irrationally, completely, and without patience. In emails that never bore his name and in whispers sold for favors, he arranged pressure like a composer arranging percussion. He liked leverage, and if you wanted a city to look away from what you were doing, there was nothing like chaos. Officers fanned behind cruiser doors, vests creaking, radios crackling with clipped phrases. A detective barked for a negotiator. A woman near the front began to sob quietly without knowing she was doing it. The gunman's hand quivered, the gun wobbling against Emily's temple as if his fear might fire it by accident. The rain beaded on the pistol's slide and slid toward the trigger. Emily's eyes were big, wet, and steady in a way that hurt to see. "Daddy," she breathed. Not a shout, a wish. Jack raised his hands, palms empty. He took one step and then another, placing each foot as if the street might argue with him about where it allowed weight. "Hey," he said, a tone that didn't need volume to be heard. "Eyes on me." The gunman startled at the quiet authority, then snarled, jerking Emily closer. "Back off! Don't come closer!" Jack didn't. He set himself at a distance where lunging would be a mistake and waiting could become a decision. "What's your name?" he asked, because names sometimes reminded men that they were not only the worst thing they were doing. The man laughed, ragged and little. "You don't get my name." "Okay," Jack said. "Then you get mine. I'm Jack. She's Emily. She's 7. She likes to draw dinosaurs with eyelashes. She's afraid of the dark nights after thunderstorms. You put that muzzle on me, not on her." The man blinked, something human stuttering through the panic. Olivia had inched to the curb, her jaw clamped so tight a muscle jumped near her temple. She stared at Jack, as if the angle of his shoulders might reveal a secret. You think this is about you? The man spat. None of you get it. Jack's voice dropped until the street leaned in. I get that your heart is going to explode if you keep breathing like that. I get that your hands are numb and your mouth tastes like pennies. I get that none of this goes where you want if you pull that trigger. I've been in rooms where men changed their minds and stayed alive because someone helped them see the next minute. Let me help you see the next minute. A beat, rain soft as whispers on jackets. A siren Dopplered past and fell away like a wave losing strength on the sand. It was not a movie moment so much as a math problem Jack had solved before. Distance, angle, dominant hand, line of sight. The presence of a puddle at the gunman's left heel that might slick a knee at the wrong second. The location of Emily's skull relative to the muzzle. The weight of his own body when he committed. Don't, the gunman started, and the word was a flinch. Jack went. His left hand closed on the gunman's wrist, thumb grinding the nerve between tendons. His right forearm sheared across the man's elbow, compressing bone. The muzzle bucked up, skyward, the shot tearing a hole in the rain with a sound like a metal door slamming in heaven. Jack's hip turned, torque traveling up through his shoulder as he wrenched the wrist outward. The pistol clanged to asphalt, spinning, a small, stupid carousel. With the same motion, Jack yanked Emily free and folded around her like a door closing on wind. She vanished into the crescent of his chest, his chin on her crown, his breath steady in her hair. I've got you, he said, not loud, not for anyone but her. I've got you, I've got you, I've got you. NYPD broke forward, a rush of boots and commands. The gunman face down, wrists cinched, rights red into rain. A woman somewhere laughed when she meant to cry. A man clapped and didn't finish. More phones filmed everything, proof that strangers needed of what they'd already seen. Olivia exhaled the breath she'd been holding since the first siren. She had been in rooms where billions moved across screens and no one clapped because no one felt anything. She felt this. Felt it in her knees, which wanted to sit on a curb and be nobody for a minute. Then the street remembered how to be cruel. Someone said, "Did you see the way he moved?" Another answered, "He's military, has to be," as if skill were a confession. A reporter with perfect hair pushed to the front and pointed a microphone like a tooth. "Mr. Miller, are you affiliated with any security firms? Were you here as part of a staged—" Jack turned, face a mask he wore when he needed a mask. "I was here because my daughter is here." Two detectives edged in, the older one's suit jacket too thin for the rain. "Sir, we need a statement. Protocol, okay?" Emily burrowed deeper into Jack's coat. "Don't let them take you," she whispered, voice broken glass. "Not going anywhere," Jack said, to the detective. "You'll get your statement, after she's warm." Olivia stepped forward, her tone the kind you use when you know how meetings end. "Detective, I'm Olivia Sterling. My counsel will coordinate any statement necessary. For now, this child goes home." The detective's eyes flicked to her, the way the eyes of mid-level men flick to power even when it is wearing rain. He hesitated, then nodded. "Tonight. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., 12th Precinct." Across town, in an apartment that looked like a white shoebox spilled across by a catalog, Bradley Cross watched a live news feed with the volume down. The camera angle framed Jack's arm locking. His turn, the drop. Bradley smiled without teeth. "Excellent," he said to no one. "Let's make him the problem." Jack boiled water because tea was something to offer a frightened child even if she drank half the cup and left the bag to die on the saucer. A blanket went in the dryer until it was a sun. Emily's favorite stuffed bear, Atlas, received a solemn hug before serving as anchor under her elbow. "Daddy," Emily said, voice small in the way of voices that had used themselves up not to scream. "Were you scared?" Jack sat on the rug beside her, elbows on knees, big hands loose to show they were not fists. "Of course," he said. "Being brave and being scared are cousins. They mostly travel together." "Will he come back?" "No," Jack said. "He doesn't get to live in our house. That's the rule." He tapped her forehead, then his. "He doesn't get to live here either." She nodded, the acceptance of a child who wants to accept. Then, "Who was the lady who talked to the police, like they were Alexa?" Jack almost smiled. "Her name's Olivia Sterling. She looked like a superhero who forgot her cape," Emily said very seriously. When Emily slept minor miracle, held together by the drier warm blanket, and the bear and the way exhaustion drags small bodies like a tide, Jack sat at the table with his old green notebook and wrote things that made him feel less like a man reacting and more like a man planning. Locks, routes, names, timings. He drew a rectangle for their apartment and labeled doors and windows because paper is a place to put fear so you can look at it. On the third cup of coffee, the door buzzer sounded. He checked the monitor. Olivia stood on the stoop with an umbrella that looked engineered by an aerospace firm. She was not alone. A woman in a charcoal suit stood slightly behind her, posture like well-written code. He opened the door and didn't invite them in until he'd seen the sidewalk twice and the roofline once, a habit that kept old ghosts where they belonged. "Mr. Miller," Olivia said, and it was strange how careful her voice was, as if she'd put the sharp edges down somewhere. "I know this is late. I came because I don't think tonight was random." Jack didn't ask her in. He stepped into the hall and closed the door behind him, keeping Emily's sleep on the safe side of wood. "You're sure? The man who grabbed your daughter isn't who he appears. He's a tool," Olivia said. "And I know the hand that picks tools for this kind of job." "Say his name," Jack said. "Bradley Cross," Olivia answered like a diagnosis. "He's been circling my company for months. Extortion, rumors, data probes that look like noise until you realize the pattern." "Why, my kid?" Jack asked. "Because leverage doesn't care who it breaks," Olivia said, the anger unspooling in 4 words. "Controlled, elegant, lethal. I am sorry." Jack looked at the stairs as if there could be answers on them. "I don't want your apology," he said, and it wasn't cruel, only true. "I want this to stop." "It doesn't stop until he's punished for trying," Olivia said. "I can help with that part." She motioned to the woman in the charcoal suit. "This is Mariah Lane, my general counsel." Mariah nodded once, her eyes making a quick geography of Jack's scar on the knuckle, the way he stood, the wariness that looked like a coat he couldn't take off. "We'll handle the police," she said, "but you'll still have to give a statement. We'll also start the civil engines. Sometimes it's the paper cuts that end men like Cross." Jack nodded. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. "The 12th, Mariah said. "We'll meet you at 8:40 outside." She hesitated, then added, "Get some sleep." When they left, the hallway felt bigger and emptier. Jack put his palm flat against the door as if to feel the quiet. In the next room, the dryer clicked as it cooled. He went back to the table and drew a smaller rectangle labeled Emily. The morning after a city almost swallows a child, headlines choose their sides. A tabloid ran, "Hero or Hoax," with a freeze frame that turned Jack's grip into menace. A business site posted Olivia Sterling target of shadow campaign. A talk show replayed the gunshot like a drum loop and asked if bystanders should intervene. On a feed no one was supposed to see, a meme replaced Emily with a bag of money and wrote "The hostage that says inflation" across the top. The city did what it does, performed outrage, then forgot what the outrage was about, and just enjoyed the performance. At the 12th precinct, the lobby smelled like wet wool and old ink. Mariah breezed through the formality like a winter storm in excellent shoes. Jack told the story without decorating it. The detective who'd spoken to him last night held a pen like a truce flag. "You moved faster than trained officers," he said. Not quite accusation, not quite admiration. "I had a better reason," Jack said. "Mine was crying." Olivia waited outside beneath a gray sky that wore the sun like a secret. When Jack stepped out, she fell into step with him, a detail no PR person would have advised. Cameras peeped from across the street like sparrows. "There's an underground I need to show you," she said. "You mean servers," Jack said. "I mean rooms where men drink bourbon and pretend it's courage," Olivia said. "But also servers." They took a car that smelled like lemon and negotiation. Olivia's penthouse was higher than weather. Clouds scuffed the windows like soft chalk. The place was clean in the way of museums and grief. Jack stood just inside the door and tried not to look like a man counting exits. "Coffee?" Olivia asked. "No," Jack said. "Tell me where Cross is." Olivia smiled in a way that wasn't about amusement. "Close. He likes to be close to what he wants." She opened a console and brought up a mosaic of screens, email dumps, shell companies with names as bland as crackers, shellmen smiling at ribbon cuttings, a map of small alarms with Cross at the center like a stubborn sun. "He's been probing our cloud architecture in fragments, looking for old misconfigurations. At the same time, he's planting stories about my leadership. And 2 weeks ago, a man who used to work for one of his subsidiaries had his rent paid in cash and started showing up around my office." "The man from the alley?" Jack asked. "That's my bet," Olivia said. "He didn't orchestrate. He carried." "Then we go upstream," Jack said. We make it so the man who thinks he's in a clean suit is standing in mud. Olivia's eyes lifted to his. It was not a look she allowed many men. You talk like you've planned rooms before. I've built safer houses than this, Jack said, and meant mines, not buildings. A predator likes patterns. Jack broke his. He sent Emily to school with 2 other parents he trusted like cousins, swapped her bright backpack for a dull gray one nobody would notice, added a second route home that included a stop for dumplings whether they wanted dumplings or not. He taught her the difference between being watched and being seen. He turned games into drills without stealing the joy. "We're spies," he said, and she lit up, and they practiced disappearing in a grocery aisle by standing still, blending into cereal boxes with the solemnity of art. At night, Jack and Olivia built something that looked like patience and felt like a siege. In Sterling's basement lab, polished concrete, air like a server room's sigh, they sat at a long table with a whiteboard and an old battered city map spread beneath it. Mariah came and went with documents that sliced where knives couldn't bite. A man named Ethan Walker, who had served with Jack and now ran a small cybersecurity outfit, leaned on the back 2 legs of a chair and explained packet captures in metaphors that would make a grandmother nod. "Cross isn't trying to smash," Ethan said. "He's trying the windows to see which ones squeak. He'll stop before the alarm because he doesn't want the police report. He wants doubt. So we give him a window that doesn't squeak," Jack said. Olivia looked up. "A honeypot?" "Not just tech," Jack said. "People. A meeting he thinks he arranged. A person he thinks he controls. A room that looks like leverage." "Bait," Mariah said without blinking. "I prefer opportunity," Ethan offered, grinning. Olivia traced a fingertip across the map to a warehouse in Long Island City that had once held televisions and now held ambitions. "He likes this neighborhood," she said. "It feels like money is almost about to happen." They set the stage. An email thread with the velvet scent of scandal. A rumor slipped to the right ears. A schedule that made Olivia look tired, vulnerable, isolated. The precision of the trap was mathematical. The courage it required was not. Olivia knew she would be the body in the doorway, the one men believe will step aside because it's easier. She did not step aside. "Why are you doing this?" Jack asked her once, late concrete humming below, fluorescent lights buzzing like second thoughts. She tilted her head. "Because every time I let someone like Cross take a piece of me, I become a person who allows it," she said. "Because I am tired of being careful around cowards. Because he touched your child." Jack's throat worked around words he didn't say. There are sentences men build and don't release because releasing them makes something too true. The night of the meet, the sky hung low and heavy like a ceiling the city had grown too tall for. Olivia wore a gray coat that made her look smaller and a pair of flat shoes that would not betray her if she needed to run. She walked into the warehouse with a spine so straight it could have been a weapon. Jack ghosted the diagonal alleys and rooftops, a moving absence, an equation you only notice when you fail to solve it. Ethan settled in a van half a block away with a bank of screens that looked like a piano if pianos could crawl into fiber. Mariah sat at a diner with a red vinyl booth and a stack of subpoenas under napkins, because law can be mercy if you sharpen it right. 3 men met Olivia by a stack of pallet racking. Their faces were tired in the way men's faces are when they stop listening to the small voice that asks them to be better. Bradley arrived last, suit luminous as an apology he would never make. "Miss Sterling," he said, voice poured over ice. "You look less than invincible." Olivia's chin dipped in a nod that read as modest to men who didn't know it was contempt. "You asked for a conversation." Bradley made a small show of looking around. "Is this your security detail?" he asked, indicating the shadows. "I have a talent for surviving rooms," Olivia said. "It's the boardroom version of cardio." Bradley smiled in the way men smile when they believe they deserve the city. "You didn't survive last quarter's numbers as well as usual," he said. "The market wants reassurance. I can offer it. A merger, an amicable statement. You keep a title. You keep dignity." "The price?" Olivia asked, not because she needed to hear it, but because traps often like confession. "A controlling stake," Bradley said, as if offering to take half a sandwich he'd just watched her pay for. Olivia laughed once, and it felt like Thunder's cousin. "You ordered a child off the street to get this meeting. You don't get to talk about dignity." Bradley's mouth thinned. "You can't prove that," he said, but his eyes flicked inward, guilty men's rotten tell. "Actually," Ethan said into Jack's earpiece, because tech loves timing, "we can." He just pinged our decoy server from an IP block we traced to a rented suite he keeps under a shell, holding 2 floors below his primary office. The timestamp on the payment to the alley boy's roommate matches the IP's first login. Beautiful, really. Jack slid to his final position, a shadow among shadows, breath paced to the length of the corridor. His body knew this math. He hated that it still knew it. Bradley stepped closer to Olivia and lowered his voice. You broke the rules when you gave a nobody a stage. He made you look weak. I won't. He saved a child, Olivia said, and the edge came back. You wouldn't know what that costs. That was when one of Bradley's men made a choice and grabbed Olivia's arm, because habit can look like strategy to the unimaginative. The grip was hard enough to bruise, and careless enough to be evidence. Jack moved without noise. Hands, heel, elbow, shoulder. A routed body is not a magic trick so much as a decision enforced. The first man folded at the waist and forgot how to stand. The second learned about the fragility of wrists. Bradley stumbled back, found his courage in a pocket with his gun, and pulled it like men do when they're terrified that their language has finally failed them. Don't move, he snapped, or she dies. The words were a ghost of a night in the rain. Jack heard them and felt his breath grow colder rather than faster. No, Jack said, exactly as he had before. You won't. Bradley's eyes stretched, then narrowed. You think I won't shoot? I engineered a kidnapping. You outsourced cowardice, Jack said. It isn't the same thing. Bradley jammed the muzzle higher at Olivia's temple. One more step. Jack shook his head once. Here's what's going to happen. Your trigger finger is numb. You don't realize it yet. Your feet are too far apart. Your balance is working against you. The gun is at the wrong angle. Recoil will take your hand up and left. You've never trained for this moment. I have. Put it down. For a sliver of time, the room became a scale that measured not weight but will. Bradley pushed with his, sweating, lips peeled from his teeth. Jack pushed with his, and didn't look like he was pushing at all. Behind Bradley, in the corner where dust curled like small galaxies, a red diode sparked alive. Ethan's voice again. We're live. Stream is clean. Whole thing's going to 3 secure archives and a judge's inbox. Bradley made a choice that surprised even him. He took a half step, a weird, wrong half step that put his center of gravity where it couldn't help him. Jack took the rest. The gun became not a gun in his hand, an object, a lever, a thing to be sent clattering into darkness. Bradley went down hard on his tailbone with an undignified noise that made Mariah, 2 blocks away, smile into her coffee for reasons she'd deny. Olivia stepped sideways and out. It had been 10 seconds. She felt them in her bones like dog years. There is a sound to a door when men who believe themselves above laws hear it open and know that for once it is opening for them. Handcuffs don't sound like the movies. They sound like good metal doing honest work. Bradley tried to sell a story on the walk to the car, but no one bought it. The precinct smelled like yesterday's rain and rubber floor mats. The holding cell echoed like a bucket. Mariah moved through arraignment like a tide chart. The civil filings landed with the relentless calm of a clock. Tortious interference, conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, a series of numbers that stacked into a scaffold. Employees came forward in emails that trickled and then rushed, a dam of silence cracking. The man from the alley pleaded to a lesser offense when the roommate told the truth, and the transfers lined up like ants. The press that had sniffed for hoax pivoted. The new headline was simpler because it made people feel better about what they'd almost believed. Single dad exposes billionaire rival NCO kidnapping plot. A photo of Jack carrying Emily out of the alley ran above a pull quote from a detective. He did what we trained to do. He did it for his kid. Jack declined interviews. He fixed a leaky pipe under his kitchen sink. He took the trash out at night and listened to the city be less loud in the late hour. Emily sang to Atlas the bear and drew a T-Rex with eyelashes and wrote Daddy on its belly because love is literal when you are 7. Olivia stood in her penthouse and felt the glass pulse with rain. For the first time in years, she didn't check a market close before sleeping. When she woke, her phone was a red field of unread. She turned it face down and made eggs badly, and laughed at herself alone. She drove to Brooklyn and found Jack on the stoop with a toolbox and a doorbell that had died honorably after too many cold winters. I brought you something, she said, holding up a small bag as if it contained truce. It's a doorbell, he said, amused. Not just a doorbell, she said, a very expensive doorbell that won't spy on you. My engineers swore a blood oath. He smiled, which on his face was like sunlight through a navy sky. "You didn't have to. I wanted to do something that wasn't a press release," she said. "I wanted to do something that works when you push it." He took the bag. "Thank you," he said, "because gratitude is a tool too, and a bridge." They sat on the stoop and watched the block breathe. Children chalked galaxies on the concrete. An old man watered his tomatoes with the concentration of a surgeon. Two teenagers argued about the Knicks the way good friends argue when they both want to be right and to keep being friends. The city looked like a place for people again instead of a chessboard for men in suits. "People ask me," Olivia said, after the silence had curled comfortably between them, "why I didn't hire a firm like yours, you. "I'm just a dad," Jack said. He sounded like he believed it and didn't in equal measure. She tilted her head. "Come build us a security practice," she said. "Not mine, ours. One that remembers the point is people, not just systems. We'll pay you what I pay the kind of men I used to despise. You'll hire the ones you trust. You'll say no when I should say no, but might not." "You don't know me," Jack said gently. "I know you in the ways that matter," Olivia said. "You stand still when other people need it. You move when they can't. You tell the truth like it's oxygen." He considered. "I wouldn't wear a suit. I'd outlaw neckties in your honor," she said deadpan. He laughed, and the sound went down the block and made a dog wag in a window. Months later, autumn glyphed the park in sharp golds. Central Park vendors steamed pretzel carts into the cool. A saxophone curled around the Bethesda fountain like smoke that had read poetry. Emily, longer-legged now because time only knows forward, chased pigeons that were tired of being the punchline of afternoons. She wore a red knit hat she pretended made her faster. "You can't catch me," she informed air molecules. Jack and Olivia sat on a bench that had hosted heartbreak and proposals and lunches eaten by weather. He watched Emily run with the careful joy of a man who knew joy was breakable. She watched Jack with the private interest of a woman who had learned that competence could be tender. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked softly. "The life before all this?" He thought. "I miss Lily," he said. He always said it plain. "I miss how it felt to be two adults who could be tired in the same room and call it sharing." Olivia's mouth softened. "I miss not auditioning in rooms I'm supposed to own," she said. "I miss family photos I never took." "Maybe we're building new ones," Jack said, surprising himself with the courage of the thought as it came out. "Not instead. Also." Emily thundered back to them, breath clouding. "The pigeons are unionizing," she announced. "We have to negotiate seed distribution." Olivia laughed, bent, kissed the top of Emily's hat. She still wasn't used to kissing anyone. It felt like permission and a promise. They walked home as late light took the park and folded it carefully into evening. Jack took Olivia's hand where the path narrowed, not because she needed help, but because touch can be a statement that doesn't require a press release. She let him, not because surrender was a new policy, but because trust felt like a country she'd learned the language of slowly. On the stoop that night, the expensive doorbell glowed a soft ring, a small moon that always worked when you pushed it. Jack leaned against the post and watched the block as if it might lean back. "You know," Olivia said, "the first night, when you stepped forward in that alley, I thought my heart would break from fear and admiration at the same time." "I stepped because I couldn't stand still," Jack said. "But I sounded calm. It helps other people do the brave thing, if you sound like the world isn't ending." "It helped me," she said, voice almost a whisper. "I've made a career out of never being speechless. But that night, I was." He squeezed her fingers. "We don't have to talk all the time." "Good," she said, smiling into the dark, "because I like listening to Emily explain labor negotiations to pigeons." They laughed, and the laugh went up to the windows and down to the sidewalk and into the hands of the city, which for once held it gently. They were not done building a life. They were not safe forever because no one island, but the math of fear had learned a new variable, a man who used calm like armor and invitation, a child who kept making new rules for games that no longer had to be about running, and a woman who stepped into rooms and didn't bring armor because she was learning she didn't need it to survive. In a warehouse across the river, dust settled into the grooves of pallet racks. In a glass tower in Midtown, an office was emptied of its silver suits and left with the honest smell of Lysol and paper. In a courtroom, a judge wrote a ruling that quietly told bad men the city would not be their private theater forever. In a small kitchen in Brooklyn, a paper crown sat on a shelf beside a coffee mug with a chipped rim, and a man washed it with a care that made the object a sacrament. Sometimes the next minute is the miracle, sometimes it's a plan, Sometimes it's a bench in the park and a red knit hat, and the decision to cook too much pasta because leftovers make Tuesday feel safer. Sometimes it's a doorbell that always works when you push it, and the knowledge that if someone says, "Don't move or she dies." Again, there will be hands to steady the air and a voice to answer, quiet and certain, "Number you won't." And the city listened, the way cities do when they've been shown how.